again, here we are to continue our discussion of the date object. In the last couple videos, we talked about what dates are, how you can work with dates, and we got a leg up on working with dates and how you're going to work with them for the assignment, right? Let's start working on the assignment itself now. So let's take a look at the problem. So I'm in the class syllabus here, and I have the assignment column, and this says datelib. So you're going to make a brand new library that just works with dates and the date object. Okay. So let's review the challenges in this assignment, right? So we're going to start with challenge 1, and this challenge is to make a class that will be a wrapper on the date object. So we in the previous class we talked about using prototype to extend the built-in classes and give them new methods. That works pretty good in some situations, but it's kind of dangerous in other situations. Like if you have a method that has, or if you have an object that has a lot of methods on it, then it can be dangerous to add new methods to that. So better for us is to make our own class, but internally we'll want access to all of those original methods of the date object and all the things the date object can do for us, right? We don't want to rewrite all that, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new class. I called my class D uppercase. I don't know. It was short. It was easy to type. And what's going to happen here is it's going to create a new date object. So we can call this composition. So sometimes you have inheritance, like when we add a method to the prototype, it's kind of like we're inheriting a new method. So every instance inherits from the prototype, right? Just like you inherit from your grandparents, which were maybe a prototype for you, right? In composition, what we do is we compose objects. So we put them together like Lego bricks, right? So we put one object inside another one, like we store it in there, right? And that's what's happening here. What we'd like to do though is we'd like to be able to initialize our date object the same way the built-in date object can be initialized. And what that means is, the date object, we saw that you could initialize it in several different ways. So you could initialize it with a date string. You could initialize it with, and actually a few different date strings. You can initialize it with the year, month, day, and hours, minutes, seconds, right? And you can also initialize it with another date object. So you can pass a date object in. So that's pretty complicated, right? Like one, we got to be able to look at the parameters, see what they are. Two, we got to be able to accept multiple parameters, right? So it's a little bit complicated, but actually we can simplify it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start our date class like this. Okay, so we'll start with class D. We'll set up the constructor, and then we'll use this args and the spread or rest operator. And what this does is args is an array of all the parameters. And actually you can use this in a few ways. So it can be the last parameter and it can represent all the rest of the parameters. Here I'm using it since I don't have any parameters listed here. It's all the parameters, right? So what this does is it uses the rest or the spread operator to take all the values from this array and spread them out as separate parameters, kind of like we did with min and max earlier. Okay. Second, we're going to take these parameters and we can use them, but we're also going to spread them into the date object that we save internally. So we'll make a new property called date. We'll put it on this so it'll belong to an instance of our class, and then we'll make a new JavaScript date object with new date. And then we'll take all the parameters here and use the rest operator to spread them out, right? So that means that, with this construction here, we'll be able to initialize a new D instance in the same way you initialize a date, and it should initialize a brand new JavaScript date in the same way that you would have initialized it if you had done it this way with any of the parameters, okay? So that's what we're going to do for this project. And you could treat this differently, but you're going to add a lot more methods in here, right? So let's talk about those, right? So what challenge number 2 is, the built-in date object has get full year and get month, but then, get full year is kind of long to type. Get month returns the number of the month, but not the spelled out month, which can be inconvenient at times, right? Um, Plus you have to say get month, right? And maybe I want to get the short month, like MON. I don't want to, or JUN for June, right? Or SEP for September. I don't want to get September spelled out. So in some cases, I want to use the short month, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to add some new methods. So we'll just have year to get the full year, month to get the full month spelled out, not just the number. We'll say day to get the day. We'll say hours to get the hours, and minutes and seconds to get the minutes and seconds, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to set this up as a getter. Since you only ever get a value here, it's kind of inconvenient to use the parentheses, and it's kind of like, really it feels like a property, right? I'm just getting the value, right? So I don't want to call a method to return a value. I'd rather just get the value from a property. So what we'll do is we'll use a getter method, and then that'll let us drop the parentheses so we can treat our date object like this, okay? So that's challenge number 2. So you'll make a new instance of D, and then, if you say D.year, it'll give you the year. Convenient. If you say D.month, it'll give you July. Okay? So challenge number 3. So challenge number 3 is to create a formatting string or a formatting function that takes a mask string. Okay? And the mask string will have these special characters in it. So anytime the string has one of these special characters, it'll be replaced with a value from the date. So if you have an uppercase Y, it'll replace it with the full year. If you have a lowercase y, it'll replace it with the lowercase, or the short year, right? If you have an uppercase M, it'll replace it with the full month. If you have the lowercase m, it'll replace it with the short month, okay? So uppercase M, I get July spelled out. Lowercase m, I get JUL, okay? And we can use it in this way. So if we create a new date object like this, we can say format, and then it should return a reasonable format. But if we include the mask string, the lowercase y represents the short year. The slash is not a special character on our list here, so it's printed normally. The lowercase m is the short month, so it should return the short month here. And then the lowercase d is the day, but not padded with zeros, so it's this one, right? Okay, or the date not padded with zeros. And you could get the hours, minutes, seconds in the same way, right? So uppercase H is, hours padded with a 0. Lowercase h is no padding, just the hours, right? Okay, and then you could write a date formatter like this. So this is like a super convenient date formatter. This is very similar to date formatters that are used in other languages, like PHP has this similar system built in, right? So we're just going to add that to our date object, for convenience, right? So for example, if you called date.format and then you did year/m/d, you would get something like this, right? Okay. Challenge number 4. Challenge number 4 is a when function. So you see this a lot in social media posts, right? Where it says, this post was made 3 hours ago or 2 years ago or something like that, right? So what we want to do is we want to be able to create a date object and then say date.when. And what it'll do is it'll say how long ago that was. So actually, when I wrote this, I guess it was 6 months ago. Now the dates are different, but when I wrote this, if I made the date 2019 January, then it would, if I did date.when, it would say that was 6 months ago, right? If I make a new date here, then it'll say 3 months from now, right? Because this date happens in the future. I guess this was in, month 6, right? And then this is in month 9, so it'd be 3 months now, right? And the same thing, right? So if I made 2024 and the original date was 2019, it would say 5 years from now, okay? Or 3 days from now, right? It'll, it'll calculate that, right? So you're going to figure that out. We did a little bit of that in the challenges from the previous video, right? Okay. And then there's a couple stretch challenges on here. One of them is to take it granular down to hours, minutes, and seconds, right? Okay, so challenge number 5, okay, is to write documentation for your date library. So your docs will look like this. You'll use this special format. It's slash star star, and this is a format called JS Docs. And what you want to do is you're going to add in the name of your, like for example, if we were documenting the hello world function, you would add the name of the function here, and then you'll say at returns, and it'll say what that function returns. And you can do at param. Maybe I'll add an example of that here. I'll fill this in, right? But you can do at params, and you can say what the parameters are that the function takes. Here I'm not taking any function, so it doesn't show that, right? But this function returns a string. So I say the type that it returns, and then here it returns a string, right? So you're going to go through your date functions that you've written, and you'll add documentation for each one. So you just put this in as a comment above the code, right? Okay, awesome. Challenge number 6 is to publish your date library to NPM, right? So if you've created the documentation here, then NPM can pull that in and use it, and people can read it. Challenge number 7 is to use continuous integration, and we're going to do this one in class, so you don't have to worry about solving that on your own. But we're going to have there'll be a class where we solve this one, okay? That's about it there, right? Okay, so great. So that we kind of reviewed the homework assignment. Let's start in on the homework assignment and talk about how we're going to set it up in the next video. Thanks for watching.